often the employer is going to be less welcoming to you if in fact they've told you to stop and you're continuing. Because at that point, there's little they can do to protect themselves from the law. If the other person files a complaint, then obviously there's probably going to be a little issue with my agency and any other agency they would have filed under. So again, the steps are, if you feel you're a victim of sexual harassment, then you should object, you should inform the person, and if necessary, you should inform a supervisor or someone in authority. If you're the person engaging in behavior, then obviously, you should stop, and you should be cautious about what type of behaviors you're engaging in the workplace. Please remember that the workplace is the workplace. I remember I once did a training many years ago, and a person got up and objected and said, but it's my cubicle, why can't I hang these posters, why can't? And it was interesting because the HR person was in the room, and we all kind of chuckled and said, well, the problem is it's not your workplace, it's not your desk, it's not your cubicle. I mean, we have that belief because we spend so much time at work that this is our workplace, and it really isn't. I mean, we get a paycheck to do a job. It's your employer's desk, it's the employer's chair, it's your employer's workplace, and we have lesser protections there. I mean, we have to wear, nicer clothes, we have to speak appropriately, we have to handle clients appropriately, the same way you have to also interact with your coworkers. 1 second.
So sexual harassment is only in the workplace. I remember you said something about public places.
Nope, no, not only in the workplace. It can be in housing. There are actually quite a few categories that are protected under the law, but the ones that you're going to most likely encounter are going to be employment, housing, and public accommodation. So in other words, your landlord, if your landlord is coming to you and saying, look, engage in this relationship with me, or, I'm going to start evicting you and I'm doing something extreme, that's illegal. If you are going into a coffee shop every day and someone's, smacking you and you're behind, and you don't like that, because of course you might not care, it might be someone you've known. But if you object to that, stop, and the person doesn't, you have a right to object to that store owner and say, look, your employee has been treating me inappropriately and I'd like you to ask them to stop. Yeah. I'm sorry, because as soon as you started speaking.
What about instances where there's like they have certain companies that are like employee owned? You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. They have certain companies that are employee owned. In the case like that, what if they have like a little, have posters up in their little work,
You mean if it's a small company, maybe the owner's there?
Yeah, well, I've seen like a lot of construction companies, a lot of like uniforms.
Oh no, yeah, we have no, it's still illegal, and we have a lot of complaints within construction companies. But believe it or not, construction companies and those workplaces have improved so much in the last 10 to 20 years. You'd be surprised. But yes, you still have a lot of issues in certain workplaces, which because of the type of workplace it is, you tend to have more issues.
Well, I mean, but you mentioned that in fact it's not their workstation.
No, any place, the workplace is defined, and we're going to define the workplace a little bit, but there's a good opportunity for me to move and define the workplace. The workplace, I'm going to get your question, I'm not going to forget you. The workplace is any place where you're at work. So you can be sexually harassed anywhere. So if you as a real estate broker, you're showing an apartment, and you're with another broker who's harassing you, that's harassment. If you go to a real estate seminar, you can be harassed there. The workplace is anywhere where you have to work. So if you're at a meeting, if you're at a training, if you're on a trip, if you're in a hotel room, even if it's a lunch meeting that you feel you have to go to, a retirement party that was mandated. I used to tell people many years ago our busiest day was January 2nd. Because after all the Christmas parties, everyone would be calling us complaint. So the workplace is I mean, and I don't laugh, I don't say that with a joke, it really was. The workplace is very broadly defined.
What about people that go on their way to work? Like, you see some of these posters on the subway?
No. You can't do, no. We're not going to talk about, obviously, let me backtrack. Very clear. It's a form of discrimination prohibited in the workplace, place of public. But when you're talking about a place of public accommodation that's open and notorious like the subway, that's not covered. Under every law, there are exclusions. Like, for instance, we don't cover the public libraries. Why? Because you are going to find a lot of sexual harassment in the public library. Half the books are inappropriate. You want an open internet in the public library, so people can go and look at art that might be inappropriate. So there are certain places that by nature of what they are, they're not going to be covered areas like the subway station, the subway. Although they are to some extent, you aren't going to see totally inappropriate advertising by the New York City Transit Authority.
Well, no, I mean, but they do have posters that say, especially like if you feel somebody else,
Oh yeah, you can. Oh yeah, you can complain to the transit. Oh, as a matter of fact, my good friend wrote the sexual harassment policy for the Transit Authority. If you feel that you're sexually harassed by another subway patron, yes, you can call the Transit Authority. You probably would not be able to file a complaint with us because we cover employment, public. So it would have to be an employee of the Transit Authority that sexually harassed you, and then you could file a complaint. But let's say you're under train another patron, then you would only tell the Transit Authority. That wouldn't be covered by the state division, right, by us, but it would be covered by the Transit Authority. They're actually pretty aggressive about that, believe it or not. With all the digital media and the taping, they're very aggressive about trying to investigate, not that they can always locate the person. You had a question? I thought there was another question. I'm sorry.
What are my rights? Let's assume someone makes an inappropriate comment, but I don't, anybody, it could be anyone. But I don't say anything to this person, okay? Let's assume that, whatever, you say, hey, big boy, whatever the comment is, and I don't say anything about it. Now, what are my rights, assuming I didn't warn this person that this was something I did not like?
Well, it gets more complicated. We're really getting into issues that are the fine issues that maybe a judge would look at, but it is very important to object. And it really depends, your question depends on the severity.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
If someone is groping you, let's say, right, if someone's groping you.
Mine is touching, I mean,
right,
but
which is
it's a super inappropriate comment, that I would be offended by. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, it depends. It depends on the history of the relationship. It depends on the severity and the pervasiveness. Take that into account. Yes.
Great.
Everything. Let me backtrack to say something that's very important. No, it is. I mean, don't laugh about this because it is. That's a really good question. He asked a very good question. Sexual harassment laws are not about morality busting. Let me make it very clear. That's why I go back to his question. They're not trying to make a society more. As a matter of fact, we don't really care what you do when you're outside of these settings. The idea is that when you're into work, you have to be here right now. You have to sit next to her. You might not like her. You might not want to sit next to her, but you have to. So when we're at work, we're a captured audience. So the law has said in certain settings, we're going to protect you. If you're going to be forced to be there to work, to collect a paycheck, to be a participant in the society, we're going to make sure that you can at least do that in kind of this level playing field. And that's what it's about. It's not about what you do outside of your work, what you do in your home. We really don't care about that. We care about what you're doing in the workplace, what you're doing in the house, where of course you have a right to live free of discrimination, you have a right to work free of discrimination. So the law wants you to tell the person no, because the reality of it is you and I could be friends. I tell people, although we were laughing earlier, I'm the director of sexual. I have tons of friends. I have tons of great friends. I touch them, I do whatever. Of course, I'm a human being, right?
Right.
That's not sexual harassment because I know that it's welcome.
I agree. Okay.
But so in most settings they do. But again, we're going to talk a little bit about this, and this is a good opportunity. The more extreme the behavior, the less you have to object. And that's why I gave an example of touching. Most people would agree that you don't expect to be groped, even by, unless it's really, really close friend. So most people should know that that's inappropriate, that's unwelcome. But if it's just like what you said, hey, big boy. It might be something that is
get too crazy.
Right. Thank you very much. Don't get too crazy. It might be, it might be a term of endearment that you guys have used to each other in the past, and you're just having a bad day today.
Okay. Thank you.
So it's always a reasonable person standard. It's reasonable person standard. We've had people come in and say to us, he's, the person said I was cute every day. Well, we dismiss it. That's not reasonable to say that a reasonable person would think if someone said, oh, you look cute once or twice, that was sexual harassment. Not the person said, oh, you look cute and mentioned a body part. Well, obviously, that's a different scenario. So it's a reasonable person judgment. No morality, no extremes, reasonable person. Who can sexually harass? Your coworker can sexually harass you. Your supervisor can sexually harass you. A vendor can sexually harass you. A client can sexually harass you. Anyone can sexually harass anyone. There are no limitations.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to go back really quickly.
Sure.
You said that the person has to let the person know. If they felt uncomfortable, a third party can come in and let the person know. Does that count or no?
Yes, and let me backtrack. When we say we want you to tell the person, the law also takes into account that there's circumstances that you may not be comfortable telling the person. You know, there's some people who might feel intimidated. There's some people who might be a little bit shy.